We now would like to start session 2A, a panel session, efforts to strengthen supply chains. In this panel session, we're going to talk about participation in overseas projects with some of the measures that are undertaken. The facilitator for this panel session is Ms. Hiroko Kondo, CEO of Matrix K. I give the floor to Ms. Kondo, please. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I will be serving as the facilitator. My name is Hiroko Kondo. I am from Matrix K. I'd like to be seated as I moderate this session. In this panel session, we're going to talk about the measures taken by the industry in participating in overseas projects, and we're going to hear from them the expectations from the overseas companies towards Japanese corporations. So the first speaker is Mr. Vincent Bicheron, the president of Framatome Japan KK. Please.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Kanto. So I will first start by briefly describing what is Framatome. Framatome is a maker of reactors and fuel. We are a subsidiary of EDF, Électricité de France, and also MHI. So it's a French company, but not exclusively French. We are also in the United States, other European countries, and ASEAN, of course, and here with Framatome Japan KK. We are about 17,000 engineers and workers, and we are hiring more than 2,000 people per year. We have built 92 reactors worldwide in France, of course, all the French fleet, but also in United States, other European countries, in America, even South America, and Africa as well. And we are present on more than about 300 reactors worldwide for the maintenance, safety upgrades, increasing the performance, and also delivering fuel to these reactors. We are also present on the reactors in Japan, PWR and BWR as well. So if we go to the topic of today, Framatome is purchasing about 1.3 billion euros per year of products and services. It's a big amount. We have very important suppliers in Japan on forgings, on other metallic parts, on valves as well. And it's going to increase. My message here today is that this is going to increase dramatically. Why? Because the French government, as was mentioned before today, has decided to launch 6 EPR plus 8 in option. We are constructing 2 EPRs in the United Kingdom, and we are about to start 2 additional units. There are projects in Central Europe, in India as well. So globally, the level of our procurement will increase dramatically. And we are purchasing on, in fact, all the scope of nuclear. If I go, I will not describe in detail, but what are the criteria? And that's essential for us. The criteria for our supply chain are, in fact, pretty much aligned with the Japanese policy, which is S+3E. So first, safety. This is clearly our top value. We don't make any compromise on this. Because if we don't have safety, and if we cannot ensure the confidence to the population and to the authorities in our ability to ensure safety, there is no nuclear. I will put it the other way around. If we have any issue in safety, in the broad sense of safety, including integrity, including health and safety as well, we can jeopardize our business. So safety, top priority. It includes nuclear safety with quality, safety culture. Safety culture is particularly important as well for us. compliance, integrity, and health and safety, because we cannot be credible on nuclear safety if we cannot already ensure the safety of our workers. So we need to be exemplary on this. Then, energy security. We must deliver our nuclear projects on time because it's an essential source of energy for our countries. So our suppliers have to be robust. That's extremely important, resilient, and they need to have a management of risks to ensure continuity of supply, whatever the risks are. Be it upstream, for instance, on the supply of raw materials, or downstream, we work with them on transportation, logistics. That's extremely important. An important point is about resources and competencies. And this is addressed today in a specific session. And we also need economic efficiency, because nuclear energy globally has to be competitive versus other sources, and Framatome has to be competitive also versus our competitors. So we are emphasis a lot on operational excellence and to have a smooth and fluid, efficient interface with our suppliers, and environment with corporate social responsibility. So that's here. Yes. So there is a process to be qualified as supplier. I will not describe it. What is important to keep in mind is that for us, Japan has very, very high level of technology and skilled workers and competencies, no doubt about this. And Framatome has very strong relationships with the Japanese suppliers. We have a local subsidiary here. I'm managing this subsidiary to facilitate the interface. We know that interfaces are not always smooth. That's important. So please don't hesitate to contact us at Framatome Japan KK, and we provide visibility on the future with EPRs and keywords: safety, security of supply, and competitiveness. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Besseron. Next is from NuScale, Vice President of Supply Chain, Mr. Scott Bailey, please. Mr. Bailey, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. I'm very pleased to be here. My name is Scott Bailey. I'm the Vice President of Supply Chain for NuScale Power, and I've been with NuScale for 12 years. I'm really happy to be here because Japan has a rich history in the nuclear industry. And as such, that means it's a target-rich environment for us to find additional partners and suppliers, which we're going to be needing in the future. So I'm here to learn about what the various suppliers in Japan can do, and what their capacities are and capabilities and so on and so forth, and what's available here in Japan. We'd like to expand as many of you know, we already have existing relationships with companies like IHI and JGC, and we'd like to expand those relationships here in Japan. I won't get into a lot of detail about what NuScale's up to these days, but I suggest if you go out to our website at www.nuscalepower.com, you can get all the latest updates. But things are really happening, and the future is now. NuScale we're actively implementing our first power plant in the United States called the Carbon Free Power Project for a 2020 commercial operation date. So as I mentioned, it's now that we're doing this, right? We're ready to order materials. This project is going forward. And then one of the primary challenges that we're going to have, as with our, the competitors that we have out there, for which there are many, is being able to keep up with the scale required in order to support the needs. I mean, you heard the folks talk today about how many gigawatts of power are needed. That's a lot of suppliers doing a lot of work. So what do we need from suppliers? It's really not all that complicated, right? Cost, quality, and schedule, right? So try not to complicate it much more than that. On the cost side, you know, we have to be competitive. Don't always have to be the lowest, but we have to be competitive in total cost of ownership. Quality, and included in quality, you know, is you have to have good programs, including your safety programs, as well as your quality assurance programs. I won't get into a lot of the details up here, but for safety related, you know, pressure boundary components, you know, we utilize, particularly in the United States, and many other countries utilize the ASME code, so you would have to meet those requirements. However, I would share that the last bullet under quality there is that non-safety related components, for which the majority of the NuScale power plant is, you know, you just need whatever quality assurance program that that you may have, like an ISO 9001. So, and then schedule. You got to meet the schedule. So that's all I got today, and we'll move on.
Thank you very much. From here, we're going to have the panel discussion. The panelists will share with us their respective experience in the participation in overseas project. First, Hideki from Toshiba Energy Systems. Thank you. Usui from Toshiba ESS. Today, I would like to talk about our initiatives in advanced reactors, as well as overseas projects, which are important to maintain and strengthen the supply chain capability for the projects in Japan. So there are two projects. Well, given the Ukraine situation and carbon neutral, stable supply of energy and non-fossil fuel, non-carbon source nuclear is becoming more important. Lessons learned from Fukushima Daiichi reminds us of the importance of safety first. So feasible technologies within those constraints are to be developed. Here we are showing the coexistence with renewables in the future for stable supply. Two approaches: high temperature gas reactor and IBR, which is a large scale light water reactors. So baseload as well as combination with the storage system to respond to the fluctuation in output. That is for the high temperature gas reactors. And for IBR, the feature is the load following. And here, what we are working on in terms of the characteristics of IBR and high temperature gas reactors. And given our accumulated technology and track records, we are to respond to the requirements from society. Next, about the overseas projects. Here you can see what we are working on, from uranium fuel fabrication, plant construction, maintenance, restart, decommissioning, and ITER, as well as conducive motors. You know, we are engaged in all of these areas. In Japan, BWR restart and decommissioning of Fukushima are the areas that we are focusing on as we speak. In Japan, that is. On the global markets, we are working mainly in the area of steam turbine and generators, development and modifications, engineering, design, manufacturing, procurement, packaging, and installation to commissioning. And we do enjoy the #1 share in terms of installation in China. And here you can see the steam turbine supplies, including the fossil fuel plants, around 2,000 and 200,000 megawatts altogether over the years. And here, some of our overseas projects in nuclear field. Sorry for the busy slide. AP1000 and Baraka in UAE. These are the projects that we were involved in even after Fukushima. At EDF, the stator replacement and rotor replacement and rewinding are the projects that we are involved in. And as for reactor internals, such as the control rod drive mechanisms and others, we are working on this as well. Finally, but not least, for further participation in overseas projects, many initiatives are being implemented. After delivering the products, the services would be needed, and we would like to contribute in the service area. And especially in Europe, where there is a growing momentum for a new build, and we need to strengthen supply chain, as well as to respond to the legal and regulatory requirements. And we like to do that together with the Japanese agency, Arai. And we are trying to enhance our capabilities and facilities for manufacturing and testing. And the picture is the signing of a memorandum, understanding a memorandum with Bechtel. So going forward, we would like to proactively participate in overseas projects so that we can maintain and strengthen the supply chain that could be conducive to the planned construction in Japan as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Usui. Next up is from Mr. Masanao Moriwaki, Senior Vice President and General Manager of Hitachi-GE Nuclear Energy, and Mr. Peter Faring, Vice President of GE Hitachi Nuclear Energy, Vice President of GE Hitachi Nuclear Energy, on supplier expectations. Please.
聞こえますか?
Thank you. It's a little tight here, so I would like to stay in my seats and make the presentation from here. I am Masanao Moriwaki from Hitachi-GE Nuclear Energy. Today, I would like to talk together with GE Hitachi, talk about GX100 and the opportunities and the challenges that we have. So Hitachi and GE alliance in nuclear. In 2007, Hitachi and GE joined hands. So we have in Japan, Hitachi-GE Nuclear Energy, and in the United States, GE Hitachi Nuclear Energy. And the purpose of the alliance is to bring the strength of both companies so that they can have synergistic effects through complementing each other and provide the latest BWR technology to the customers around the world. So that was the background for this alliance, and we're conducting business as such. So from here on, I'd like to talk about I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Peter Faring, the Vice President of GE Hitachi Nuclear Energy, to talk about the BWRX-300 SMR. Thank you.
GE Hitachi has a very long history and experience in boiling water reactor technology, over 80 years. GE and Hitachi have been collaborating for more than 50 years on reactor design and reactor builds. I'd like to point out in 2007, GE and Hitachi formed a joint venture, as Moriwaki-san pointed out. And GE Hitachi have licensed 67 reactors in 10 countries. A little about our BWRX-300 power plant. So BWR means boiling water reactor. X stands for the 10th generation of design of the boiling water reactor design from GE. And 300 is the megawatt output, 300 megawatts. This reactor was designed with a design to cost approach. So we're very sensitive to reducing costs for our customers, both initial investment costs and overall plant operating costs. And our first project in Ontario is targeted to be operational by 2029. Some commercial activity from our customers. In North America, Ontario Power Generation has selected GE Hitachi's BWRX-300 design, and we will be deploying that as our first project. Also, Tennessee Valley Authority in the United States and Sask Power in Saskatchewan, Canada, have selected the BWRX-300 technology. In Europe, Orlen Synthos Green Energy, OSGE, have selected the BWR technology and plan to deploy more than 70 BWRX-300 reactors in Poland and in Europe. Recently, GE was selected by Fermi Energia in Estonia as their technology for plant deployment in Estonia. In the United Kingdom, Czech Republic, and Sweden, GE also has memorandum of understanding and a submittal to the generic design assessment for deployment of our plant design in those countries. This graph shows a study by the Idaho National Laboratory in the United States regarding the capacity needs for nuclear and small modular reactors in the United States, UK, and Europe. As you can see on the right, it's projected that almost 790 SMRs of the BWRX-300 size will need to be deployed by 2050. So what are we asking of the supply chain? So GE and Hitachi are both asking for support and looking for support from the Japanese supply chain to meet this great demand. We're looking to METI for support on helping suppliers, and we're focused on an on-time, on-budget delivery for our customers. And just as a note, we will be issuing purchase orders for component supply in the next quarter. So we're here. This is the right time.
Thank you. So, Hitachi-GE の建設経験
Okay, so Hitachi-GE's construction experience started from the latter half of the 1960s, and BWRs were built, and in the 1990s, Kashiwazaki 6th and 7th, and ABWRs have been built. And after the Fukushima accident, well, when that happened, Shimane Unit 3, well, actually, Unit 1 was actually, Oma Unit 1 was actually under construction. And so 20 BWRs have been built in 40 years, one after another. But after the accident, new builds have been suspended for more than 10 years. And so before Fukushima, of course, we had accumulation of component manufacturing. We have the extensive experience, and we are therefore planning to provide such components to the existing plants, and also modularized methods and other methodologies are utilized in BWRX-300. That's our intention. But we're not directly involved in the construction work itself, but we are supporting and advising such projects. And finally, about our challenges going forward, our company, as well as the suppliers in Japan, face various challenges, including the lack of new builds in the past 10 years. And so engineering capabilities and also the production capabilities and construction-related methodologies are some things that we struggle when it comes to transcending or rather passing on the experience to the younger people. And also it is quite challenging for us to continue construction or provision of the equipment. Now, however, as was mentioned, there will be more BWRX 300 projects outside of Japan, and therefore the suppliers in Japan as well as Hitachi-GE can actually attain experience of equipment production as well as construction, so that we can then in the future, from the latter half of the 2030s, contribute to the introduction of advanced reactors going forward in Japan. And therefore, Hitachi-GE and GE Hitachi, together with the Japanese suppliers, want to really take on the challenge of going abroad into these different projects. Thank you. Thank you very much.
続きまして、
Next is from JGC, Mr. Yasuharu Kimura, who is the General Manager for Nuclear Energy, and Mr. Masanori Ichiji of IHI Nuclear Plant Engineering Department. Thank you for giving us this time. My name is Kimura from JGC. First half, JGC, latter half, IHI. Scott is here from NuScale, so I'd like to share with you the challenges that we commonly face. First, JGC. In addition to nuclear infrastructure, energy-related overall areas are where we do business. I personally have been in nuclear field for 15 years or so, especially in overseas projects. Hitachi, that Moriwaki-san just talked about. Back then, we had lots of overseas companies coming into the industry, and since JGC has extensive experience in projects overseas, so in UAE and UK, we work together. In Japan, it's more on the back-end side, the waste management and others. Regarding NuScale, in 2021, April, JGC made investment, then investments by IHI and JBIC. So for SMR projects overseas, we are to provide support. And for the time being, the projects in the US would be leading. So for the time being, we'll be working together with Fluor, which is the EPC contractor in the US for the first NuScale SMR project. But over medium to long term, of course, we are thinking of Japan as well. And in addition, Southeast Asia and the Middle East. And as we see momentum growing for decarbonization, we believe momentum for SMR will increase. So over the medium to long term, we are looking at Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and Africa, and we'd like to participate in that and support that. The coal-fired substitution, and as was mentioned earlier, the renewable energies, plus a nuclear to adjust the fluctuation. We believe that those needs exist in the world, as well as coupling with hydrogen and ammonia as well. And from METI, we do receive various support together, including the next IP initiative. Now, this is the CFPP project, the very first unit in the US. The location is Idaho National Laboratory, and 77 megawatt times 6 for 462 megawatt altogether. The commercial operation is to start in 2029. So the construction is currently underway. About 13 people, 13 engineers from JGC are in Houston office floor engaged in designing. Discussions are underway. Floor and JGC are working in a collaborative manner close to the joint venture format for this very first project in the US for success. Thank you. From NuScale, established in 2007, and NGO Floor is the major main shareholder. And as was explained earlier, JGC and IHI and JBIC made investments in the ensuing years. And officially from NRC, the license was granted. Now, IHI, in 1955, we started the nuclear business from the very early stage. So we have been with nuclear industry, nuclear business early on. 2005 was about the last project that we were involved in Japan. So that's almost 20 years ago. So maintaining technical capability has been the issue, and therefore we expanded our overseas activities and we made investments in NuScale. And restart of the operations plants in Japan, as well as a reprocessing plants and others are what we are working on today in the area of nuclear. And here you can see the recent Westinghouse designed AP1000. We shipped this, and this was the very last one. Regarding NuScale, I think many people will be talking about the characteristics of this. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip this, but it has very innovative safety features. It's a combination of smaller reactors for one plant. Lots of flexibility being provided as a result. Has many unique features. And to this unique design, including the use of METI's Nexus project, we are working on the containment plant. And over the medium term, we'll be looking at the seismic features that will be needed in Japan and elsewhere, and have a mock-up. This started last year for actual demonstration. Future is now is what Scott said earlier. And this year, next year, and the year after are where the orders will be placed for necessary components. So this has already started to roll. And so together with the suppliers, we'd like to be part of this endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kimura and Mr. Ichichi. Next, from JAIF, Senior Managing Director, Mr. Akihito Uetake will make the presentation, please. Thank you. I am Uetake from JAIF, Japan Atomic Industrial Forum, and JAIF is a co-organizer for this event. So I'd like to explain our support for overseas activities as part of our support to strengthen the supply chain, and I will cover the 3 items here. First of all, the studies on issues related to overseas expansion through public-private partnership, namely a study group on overseas nuclear power infrastructure deployment was started in 2018 to give support in providing issues related information by collaboration amongst the governments, the industry, and the financial institutions. And with regard to India, we have Japan-India Civil Nuclear Cooperation meeting, in which we have been looking into nuclear damage compensation system. Now, with regard to business exchanges with France, at the French embassy in Japan, we have been conducting business exchange as well as exhibiting in the WNE World Nuclear Exhibition that is held every other year in Paris. And in October last year, we issued a joint statement and we confirmed the importance of having a resilient nuclear supply chain being developed. Together with the United States, we have issued a similar joint statement in October last year. And last month, we have had business matching event at the embassy, Japanese embassy in the United States with 18 Japanese and American companies, and we, JAIF, cooperated in that effort. Together with the UK, we have business exchanges as well as dispatching of a delegation. And in 2016 and onwards, we have co-hosted events together with the government. And we have been conducting UK-Japan Nuclear Industrial Forum at the Embassy of the UK. And so these are the photos taken at the joint statement announcement, as well as the Washington, D.C. event that was actually conducted with the presence of the State Minister Ota of METI. And next, I'd like to talk about the matching business between Japanese and overseas companies. Since 2010, we have issued English brochures about overseas companies, and we provide that information to our members so that they can use the information. And that's made into web-based information, and so there's a search function, and that really enhances the matching functions between the buyers and suppliers. So we have enhanced the capabilities, and the matching capability is really has a bulletin that is available to the members, and the procurement information of overseas companies, as well as partnerships being sought. All of these information can be posted for the matching purposes. And as of February this year, we have 56 companies that are posting their information. A number of searches, 5,400 approximately, and the number of users, 800, and covering 7 countries. And through various occasions, such as the nuclear exhibition, we are going to have this website being leveraged more through the cooperation with Detroit and others. And we also would like to contribute to the Advanced Reactor Supplier Challenge as well. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So from here, we are going to have a panel discussion based on the earlier presentations. We have Hidehito Mimaki from MHI and Mr. Ryota Endo from METI participating in this panel discussion as well. And I will not be using official titles, so I'd like to ask Kimura-san. There were expectations from Framatome and NuScale explained earlier. So, Roxanne, could you start? Mimaki from MHI. From 1990s, on a continuous basis, we have been exporting equipment and components. Can you show the slide? Yes, next slide, please. Here you can see the actual main exports that we have made. As you can see, the US, France, steam generators, and reactor vessels, the main components of PWRs. Over 50 reactor vessels and steam generators shipped so far. In the manufacturing of these, the suppliers in Japan have been providing materials to us and supporting us. So after obtaining those materials from Japanese suppliers, we manufacture to export. So the challenge is the country-specific standards like ASME code in the US and RCC in France. For suppliers who don't have experience in that area, they tend to hesitate. So what we do is to provide support so that they can participate as well. That's been the format so far. Going forward with the use of government support, we would like to cooperate with Japanese suppliers so that we can contribute to overseas projects with quality components. Thank you, Mimaki-san. Ijichi-san from IHI. The IHI itself has it's been 20 years since the new START participation. So maintaining and strengthening technology capability is the issue, as is the case with others. Competitive edge and ASME QA, these are the requirements to participate in overseas projects. To gain experience there, participating in the real projects is the quickest and the best way. Globally, not just NuScale, but large and smaller reactor initiatives, projects are underway. So, of course, track record really is important in the nuclear field. And so we would like to work together with suppliers so that they can gain accumulated experience. Thank you. Kimura-san from JGC. As I briefly mentioned in my presentation, Southeast Asia is one of the strong areas for Japan, exporting the social infrastructure in particular. So it could take some time, but it takes 10 years for nuclear developments. And when you get that information, regulations and the weather and seismic resilience, those are the requirements that will be needed. And in terms of preparation, I think participating in the U.S. projects, I think, is important to maintain the supply chain in Japan. If that's not enough, in Europe, East Europe, as well as Africa, we can be ahead of others in capturing the opportunities so that that experience could be shared with the suppliers in Japan. The NuScale supply chain strategy is built the supply chain close to the area, the local supplier. So to prepare for that, I think it's high time that we started working. See, thank you. Next question. As was explained in the keynote presentation, ENRI is promoting the Innovative Supplier Challenge. So I'd like to ask Toshiba and Hitachi about the challenges in teaming up the supplier as a lead company. This is Usui. The opportunities for new builds in Japan has been lost for quite some time. Both in Japan and overseas. Have the opportunities for actual work is really important, creating such opportunities, especially in the case of overseas projects. As Mimaki-san said earlier, the legal and requirements, regulatory requirements of each country might be considered as a hurdle for many players, which is a fact. So I think we should be sharing our expertise in that area to support those new players. And the probability, feasibility of the project need to be enhanced. As I mentioned earlier, together with partners, we have been promoting projects. So as to make attractive proposals to our overseas customers so that the contracts could be awarded. Thank you. Ryuk-san, thank you. Together with supply chain companies, we would like to participate in overseas projects. And the supply chain companies, some are very proactive. During the poster session, I talked with many people. Some are very proactive, very positive about participating in overseas projects, while others are rather hesitant. And the big reason is that it's overseas, it's outside the country. And secondly, the future market is still not sure, I'm afraid. So making investments in that situation is rather difficult. So one solution to that would be we have at Hitachi-GE, Hitachi, share the information about the target market, and not just private sector, but as a JAIF representative talked about, the industry-wide initiatives as well as support from the government, including METI support. And in the case of overseas projects, maybe leverage the government-to-government level arrangements. If support could be provided in those areas that are beyond the control of individual company, I think that will be very helpful. So going forward, we will continue to communicate with METI in moving forward. Anything to add?
Yeah, I think a few things to add. Since the METI event in Washington, D.C. 2 weeks ago, GE has reached out to most of the Japanese suppliers that participated in that event. So we're ready to act now. We're ready to work together now with the suppliers. If Japanese suppliers don't have experience working with U.S. companies, we have Hitachi-GE to support. So we're an integrated team. We work together. And I think some help from METI, as Marwaki-san indicated. If there's a simple, efficient process for Japanese suppliers to obtain nuclear import and export licenses, that really helps the Japanese supply chain. As well, any financial support that is available for Japanese suppliers to reestablish nuclear capabilities, we see that as a key for the suppliers. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Mr. Endo from ANRI regarding the overseas projects. Many comments were made. So how does the government plan to support this? Thank you. As we talk to the industry representative, some of the major challenges are the uncertainty, the business uncertainty, a lack of visibility about the future. So we like to think what government can do in that area, more specifically, the future business partners in the U.S. To what extent can you recover the investment over how much time to reduce that risk? For example, JBIC and NextStep. Those governmental financial tools are available. And in order to comply with the standards and codes of each country, we like to provide support as well. And we have other support programs as well. So we are always in a communication with the companies represented here to see what a government can do to be of help.
Thank you very much. That's very encouraging. So, Mr. Uetake of JAIF, I have a question to you. With regard to supplier support, what is your comment as a representative of the industry? Thank you. Now, one of the characteristics and strengths of JAIF is, well, what we would like to leverage going forward. We have about 400 members, and that really covers the entire, almost the entire supply chain for nuclear. And over the many years, we have been building very strong ties with overseas companies. In other words, we can collaborate very closely with those companies. Now, I talked about Japan, France, and Japan-US joint statement, and we would like to expand that to other countries as well. And the website that I talked about is one thing, but in addition, for the first time in 2 years, we have this exhibition, the World Nuclear Exhibition So we would like to leverage such opportunities and use them as business matching opportunities. And I hope you will also take part. Thank you. Okay, so summarizing the session. In this session, we had presentations by Japanese as well as overseas companies in the West. And also, I think that led to a very good discussion in the panel discussion. Now, Mr. Endo, as an Arai, what is your resolve as the government as well as the expectation for the industry? Yes, thank you. The panelists that are on stage have made presentations and presented their views as well. And as they said, these are the people in the companies that will be leading the supply chain in Japan. And thank you very much for sharing your views and your prospects. Now, Mr. Ahmed and Mr. Besron and Mr. Bailing and Mr. Faring have shared with us their views from the perspective of overseas companies and what they expect of the Japanese corporations, and also what are some of the points of caution for the different companies. And we were able to hear firsthand such advice and comments. And therefore, we would like to take the responsibility of offering such opportunities so that domestic as well as overseas companies can build a relationship. And it is the job of the government to offer such opportunities. So I ask for your kind cooperation going forward as well. Thank you very much. And I thank all the panelists for your contribution. And also I'd like to thank the audience as well. With this, we close this panel session. Thank you very much.
Kondo-sama.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kondo, as well as the panelists. So the panelists will go off stage, so please give a big round of applause once again. We now would like to start panel session 2B. This is efforts to strengthen supply chains 2. We're going to talk about human resource development, measures for supply disruption and business succession, and the cases from the industry will be shared and discussed on. And again, the facilitator is Ms. Hiroko Kondo, Matrix K CEO. So Ms. Kondo, please, once again, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. So continuing on from 2A, I'm going to serve as a facilitator. My name is Hiroko Kondo, CEO of Matrix K. So in this session, we're going to talk about human resource development, measures for supply disruption, and business succession. And first, we will hear from the panelists sharing with us the cases that they have. The first speaker is Mr. Hidetaka Masumura, Executive Officer and General Manager of Sales of TVE Company Limited, please.
Thank you, Masumura from TVE. Thank you for this opportunity. Let me talk about our initiatives to strengthen the nuclear supply chain. This is briefly the company, TVE. Towa Valve might be a familiar name to the Japanese participants, but with the overseas projects in mind, we changed the company name to TVE 3 years ago. And this March, we are celebrating the 100th anniversary. And we're in the business of manufacture, sale, and maintenance of various valves, and manufacture and sale of various cast steel products. The valve business and steel business have been our main businesses, but we're adding new business, decommissioning and refined metal business in the first year of Reiwa. We established a new company in 2019, October, the TVE refined metal for the purpose of dismantling decommissioning plants and reusing dismantled metals generated. With the support of Kansai Electric Power Company, we were able to complete the demonstration of this business feasibility. So these are the main valves for nuclear applications. For all reactor designs, we are providing the valves. For PWR, these are the major valves. And in terms of the construction of light water reactors, the last PWR to be built was Unit 3 at Tomari, and for BWR, OMA plant. No construction since, and therefore, through the valve manufacturing for severe accident countermeasures and safety countermeasures, we have been trying to maintain the technology base. But it's very difficult to make investment decisions, and especially the wooden mold production is the key, and because of the aging of the engineers involved and the lack of successors, and already 3 out of 11 have been out of business, so we are trying to cooperate. And since 22, we are shifting from metal mold to foam, or the wooden mold to foam mode with the support of Henry. We used to make the wooden mold, as you can see on the left-hand side. Now we are introducing the 3D digital foam molding machine for foam. So drawings themselves, 2D drawings initially for the incorporation of new safety features. We need new drawings. So to prepare for the manufacturing of large valves, we first worked on the 3D CAD data. And this is the 3D foam mold manufacturing machine. And this CAD data come from the CAD machine. And this is the conversion technology involved. And this CAM operator is being trained in-house as well. And with this, the very complicated forming that were done manually by experienced engineers, designers, can now be done with the CAM. And this could result in a reduction of a cost as well as lead time. And through this innovation of the valve casting process, we can do everything in-house, and we can have a one-shop management of all the data, and we can reduce the cost and lead time. So flexible delivery and the quality improvement can be realized, and this would be conducive to maintaining our capability. So that's what we have been doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Masumura. So next is from Nippon Gear, Managing Director, Mr. Hajime Tsurumi, please.
Hi.
Thank you. As introduced, I am Tsurumi from Nippon Gear. So I'd like to share with you our activities to sustain the nuclear supply chain at our company. First of all, a brief overview of our company, the Nippon Gear. It was established in 1938. And the contents of our business are explained in the following slide, but the one key point here is at the top on the right, quality control and assurance. Commercial grade ISO 9001 and ASME NQA1 is what we also comply with. And with regard to our businesses, the products, the key ones are listed here: valve actuator, is the main category, and about half of our production is valve actuators. Aside from that, we have gear applications including screw jacks, gears, and reducers using gears and mixers or agitators. These are some of the lineup of our products. And the valve actuators is what is used in the nuclear segment. In 1963, Flowserve Limitorque, known as the brand of Limitorque, it's now Flowserve, but we concluded this technical alliance, and that is still continuing now. And we have been marketing two types of actuators, a Limitorque brand and our own brand actuator. And automatic includes electric, pneumatic, hydraulic, as well as manual, multi-turn, partial turn, intelligent type, mechanical, and so forth. And we're providing to fossil plants, nuclear power plants, sewage systems, oil and gas plants, and chemical plants, and also shipping. And 340,000 units have been introduced already. That's our track record. And the track record in the nuclear sector is the following. Indeed, for nuclear applications, 96% of the valve actuators used at the nuclear power stations in Japan is made by us. Domestically, more than 15,000 units, and I will come back to this later, but 4,600 units overseas. That's how much our valve actuators are used. And as you can see here, QA, quality assurance. Well, of course, domestically, it's ISO 9001, but ASME is typically the requirement, and therefore ASME NQA 1 2008 version is what we follow and abide by. And technical and environment-related aspects are covered by IEEE 382 that covers environmental texts such as thermal aging, vibration aging, and so forth. And therefore, we satisfy the requirements in IEEE 382. And these are where we are already active in overseas, 3,000 or more in Korea. And in China, more than 700 units, and UAE, Baraka nuclear power plant is there. We also deliver our actuators to them, as well as in India, China, Korea, NK1, Baraka, NQA1 requirements are satisfied. And with the focus today is especially the nuclear-related supply chain. This talks about the suppliers that are supplying to us, those in the lower levels, so to speak, but DC-driven actuators. We will not put a stop to the supply of DC-driven actuators because in 2019, one DC motor manufacturer announced that they are going to discontinue their business, and we chose two companies out of the four, and then we selected one at the end to cover for that loss of that company. And Arai and METI, namely, have provided this grant to support the nuclear sector, and we have leveraged that funding. And 2022 fiscal year is over, and now we're entering this new fiscal 2023. 140 different motor models. There are so many different models of the motors, but we're going to cover and complete all of these different models within this fiscal year 2023. And also within the company, we have various mechanisms to pass on to younger generations the technologies and the skills that is needed. And so in this effort for the supply chain to be maintained, we're also trying to nurture youngsters as well. And in addition, we have done another thing, and that is the development of diagnostic technologies using AI. This is an ongoing project. It says here as is at the top. In other words, in the past, experienced engineers would analyze the torque data and analyze it in half a day. That used to be, or that is the as is case. However, the to be state is anybody can do such an analysis, and it takes only 2 seconds to do the analysis per unit. And we're developing, or we have already developed a sensor or sensors that are needed for this to happen. And so this is another aspect of the use of the grant that was provided. So thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
ました。では続きま
Next is the panelists who are participating online regarding the human resources development. First is Professor Ken Kurosaki of the University of Kyoto, who is the head of the working group on human resources development. Thank you. I hope you can hear me. This is Kurosaki speaking. Yes, we can hear you. Thank you. Please share my slide. Thank you. Let me introduce myself. Kurosaki from the University of Kyoto. I'd like to talk about the human resources development in the area of nuclear in Japan, and to talk specifically about a new organization called ANEC, A-N-E-C. First, I want to talk about the changes in the nuclear education at universities. And second is about the new consortium, ANEC, and then the summary. First, the changes in the nuclear education at universities. In 1991, I became an undergraduate student, and back then, in 1991, at the former national universities and others, there were courses specializing in nuclear in the engineering departments. And there will be about 40 students, undergraduate students, and around 28 graduate school students per university. And there'll be about 20 instructors or professors covering nuclear from broad perspective, reactor engineering, reactor materials, radiation measurement, nuclear chemistry, and the reactor physics, fuel, etc. So that was the situation back in 1991. It was really broad-ranged and very systematic. But things changed since. The number of students majoring in nuclear declined, and in response, the nuclear courses at universities, I'm sure universities had a lot of discussion as to the advisability of keeping those independent nuclear-specific courses. And so the number was reduced, the names changed, and the diversity of the areas of expertise changed as well. And therefore, today, we don't have a very comprehensive nuclear education being provided. And enter ANEC. Of course, this current situation is an issue. So the Ministry of Education started the initiative to support international nuclear human resources over 10 years. This initiative has been providing support to the nuclear R&D or nuclear HR. However, the issue has been the lack of collaboration amongst different projects, and therefore, it was suggested that a consortium be formed for a more integrated education. I have a program director and program officer. Professor Yamamoto of University of Nagoya is a program director, and I am the project officer. And this grant from the ministry will be for 7-year period. And participating institutions of the consortium would be sharing their strength and complementing the respective weaknesses, and to have integrated fostering of the nuclear HR. There are 51 institutions participating. Almost all of the universities and industry and R&D institutions in Japan that are related to nuclear are participating. So this is the website. So if you enter ANEC and nuclear, I'm sure you can reach the website. There are 5 areas of features. One is the systematic specialized education curriculum and to advance that. Second is to enhance the nuclear education at various institutions that do have major testing facilities, and to provide opportunities overseas and to promote collaboration with the industry and other discipline, as well as to build the management system within the consortium. So the strengths are that entire Japan is involved, and that most of the relevant participants institutions are participating. The weakness is sustainability. So based on this weakness, what are the things that we need to focus on? The teachers and the taught, the receivers and givers both need to be enhanced. For example, giving credits, certification, diploma. And in terms of securing sufficient students, we need to raise the awareness. We need to think of the system that would really benefit the students, because the students will be asking, what is in it for me? So in summary, nuclear human resource development is important. People think that this is needed, but it's not very popular. So we really need to have international collaboration. So we need to analyze why we got to where we are today. We need to think of how to alleviate the uncertainties, the anxiety that come from the lack of visibility. And we have to think of the better way to communicate with the younger people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Kurosaki. Next, from the French Nuclear Strategic Committee, CSFN, the head coordinator, Mr. Hervé Maillard, please.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Mrs. Kondo. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So if we can present the slides, I don't see the slides on my screen. Okay, thank you very much. So we can go to the first slide, the next one, please. So the next one, sorry. Thank you. So the CSFN is the Strategic Committee for French Nuclear Industry in France. It's a state organization making the link between the state's orientation and the different organizations, like, for example, the industry organization or research organization, or the big industry, nuclear industry in France. And we are working on all the subjects of nuclear industry in France. So my role is to coordinate. I'm the General Secretary of the CSFN, of the Strategic Committee, and my role is to do this coordination and to discuss with the French government on all the orientations. We can go to the next slide. Yes, so we sign regularly contracts between the industrials. On the photo, you can see ministers, French ministers, and industrials. And we sign contracts defining the common orientations between the French government and the industrials, We signed so far 2 contracts. The first one in January 2019 on 4 axes. The first one is employment. The second one is digital transformation. The third one is research and fuel management for the recycling of fuel and international. And we signed a second contract in 2021, an addendum of the first contract with the creation of what I will explain just after, the University of Nuclear Profession, of nuclear skills, and also two different axes I will not detail there. For the second contract we have signed for the addendum, there were a sum of nearly 600 million euros of investment from the French government and from the industrial to work on this subject. And you can see that the skills and employment are the main topic on both of the contracts. We can go to the next slide. The next slide, yes, thank you. So as it was already said this afternoon, in February 2022, the French president asked us to work on several main axes. For the energy, the first one is the massive deployment of renewable energy. The second one is to work on the possible extension of all the existing reactors up to 50 years and more, if possible, to start the building of 6 EPR2 with the first concrete in 2022 and the first start in 2035. We will study also the construction of 8 additional reactors, EPR2, and to work on SMRs. As you can see, this program asks us to have to increase greatly the number of needed jobs in France for the nuclear industry. We can go to the next slide, please. So the next slide. So the University of Nuclear Skills of Nuclear Profession was launched more than 1 year ago. The objective, also directly under the sponsorship of the CSFN, of the committee I'm General Secretary of. The initiative is to boost the training system to sustain all these new jobs that we will have to find and to find people to work in. The UMN is not, the University of Nuclear Profession is not a training organization, but a sort of platform to make the complex nuclear and ecosystem more understandable, and to ensure that the training offering is sufficient and coherent all around France, from the north to the south, and also about the different skills that we need, welders, mechanic, electrical, and so on. So we collaborate a lot with the French organization for job seekers, and we have done also some benchmarking with also industry that can provide some very good ideas. We can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So that's the main actions that we have launched. We have created some new training organization side courses where the skills were lacking in France. We support also financially some local projects in some regions in France. They have created new schools or new organizations, so we can give them some money. We set up a scholarship. I will just present the scholarship system just after, for students to increase the attractiveness in skills where we have lacking of people. We will create a nuclear label proving that the training or the diploma is having the right expectation for the nuclear industry. And we also have created a global website where all the job offers all the training system, all the description of all the nuclear skills are gathered in only one system. So it's a very good system to have all the information. And if we go to the next slide, we will see that we have the first year. The next slide, please. Yes, we put up a scholarship system in place, and you can see that in the year 21-22 we had only 50 students in 10 schools, and this year we have more than 200 students in 26 high schools, and you can see on the map that they are all around France on the main nuclear industry areas. Thank you very much for listening, and this ends my presentation.
マイヤール様どうもありがとう。
Thank you, Ms. Meyer. We now move to Kanto Bureau of Economy, Trade and Industry. Mr. Ozawa. Hello. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Ozawa, the Deputy Chief of the Industrial Manufacturing Industry Section of Kanto Bureau of Economy and Industry, as was mentioned at the very outset. The regional bureaus, together with ENRI, are to work on the strengthening and maintenance of supply chains. Plant manufacturers and suppliers, we interviewed them in advance for preparation to identify what measures are needed for support. First, securing human resources and fostering them, developing them. The second is the measures to address the supply chain disruption and business succession. And the third is the support for overseas projects. With the construction of next generation advanced reactors in mind, we would like to promote these three areas for support. Regional bureaus of economy, trade, and industry. You may not find this to be very familiar, but there are 9 offices responsible for different regions. We are part of the Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry, and we do work with the small and medium-sized companies for digitalization, business succession, employment, and others in conjunction with relevant parties so as to provide support that are needed by visiting them. There are 400 suppliers in nuclear industry nationwide, as mentioned at the very outset. Using the network of our regional bureaus and utilizing our expertise, we would like to capture the true picture of the states that these 400 companies are in. And next slide. The corporations have received, I think, this package of slides, the collection of various support measures that nuclear suppliers can utilize. They are different areas that we are addressing. The strengthening of the infrastructure, human resources development, business succession, CapEx, R&D, overseas business. These are mainly for SMEs, but we're hoping that you will find this to be helpful. And in terms of some of the examples of providing subsidies for manufacturing, for example, development of prototypes for domestic production, as well as improving the reproducibility of the veteran engineers' technology, or the use of welding robots. These are some of the examples of the programs that we are providing. And we're hoping that together with the initiatives to be provided by the ministry, we can help the suppliers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ozawa. From here on, we would like to have a panel discussion based on the presentations you just heard. And we have as a panelist Mr. Ryota Endo, Director of Nuclear Energy Policy Planning Division of METI. So starting with supply disruption, countermeasures, and business succession challenges. And so I have a question to Sura-san. There are 400 companies related to nuclear, and compared to large companies, there are small and medium companies that have limited funds. And what are some of the measures that should be undertaken? In the presentation by TVE, you talked about the internal or in-house procurement of the mold. Please share with us what you have done. Yes, thank you. Technical skills being passed on is one thing that we had long been interested in, and the aging of the engineers that were actually responsible for the wooden mold was a problem, and there was therefore risk of supply disruption. And so 3D digital technology utilization was the decision that we have made, and that was really key. Now the work on the utilization of digital technology is, I think, positive in optimizing the production of small lot valves of different types. And also that is positive in terms of shortening the lead time and being more flexible. And therefore we can maintain the capability to produce the products as well as pass on the technology to the younger generations as well. Thank you. And so I have a question to Mr. Tsurumi of Nippon Gear. You talked about the DC motor business in your presentation, and you talked about the successful transition from the exiting company to your company. What was the key point for that success? Well, in case of our company, DC motor was a very important component of an actuator, and this company that supplied that to us was exiting the market. And when that news came to us, actually, we consulted the matter to the plant manufacturer or plant vendor, and Toshiba gave us advice. And when we went to apply for the, we were given this advice to leverage the grants from METI. We were not aware of such grants or subsidies, and we found out that it was the initial year of this grant scheme for supporting or strengthening the nuclear business foundations. And so I think that was the starting point of our success. And for nuclear sector, of course, the units 2 or 3 of Fukushima Daiichi, we were very early in being involved in the construction and deployment of nuclear power plants in Japan. It's been almost 50 years, of course. So we actually contact plant vendors as well as valve vendors, and we're on a tier 2 level, I think. And for nuclear, the company has this DNA of trying to and wanting to continue this business in nuclear. And of course, for us, the company itself, we don't have any intention of discontinuing this nuclear business. But for lower level suppliers, tier 3 and 4, they need to make a decision based on whether it's a viable business or not. And if the volume or the order is not enough, then they might decide not to continue with the business. And so that's what happened, and we had to look for an alternative. And of course, there are always risks of other companies and getting out of the nuclear business if the volume is not secured. And then the idea is to go overseas, seeking for business elsewhere. Well, that's understandable. It's a hard hurdle to overcome. And again, we really would like to see more volume in Japan. Thank you. It was mentioned earlier as well, but utilization of the support scheme led by the government is important. And so from the Kanto Bureau of METI, what do you think, Mr. Ozawa? Yes, in Kanto Bureau of METI, on a daily basis, we are really trying to meet the demands of the small and medium-sized companies, locally based companies, and we're teaming up with the local industry organizations, and we try to run along with them, so to speak. And in order to support the suppliers, as many suppliers as possible, it's important that they leverage the schemes such as the nuclear sector business foundation strengthening, but also there are many other schemes involving competitive fundings. And I think combination of these different mechanisms will be important. Now, of course, the challenge is how to best leverage such support mechanisms and what is needed to apply for those schemes. Of course, we can provide advice on a one basis individually, and the participating companies are the nuclear suppliers. And please, if you meet those people, please let them know of these schemes and the help that they can get. And please spread the word as to the support that is available when you visit plants and other facilities that might not know about these schemes. And please make full use of our bureau in Kanto. Thank you. Okay. From CSFN, I have a question to Mr. Hervé Maillard. With regard to human resource development, you did mention what the French is doing, and of course, measures are underway both in Japan as well as in France. Now, I think people engaged in the nuclear sector is rather limited compared to France. So, development of human resources in France was successful. What was the key to success?
Thank you for the question. I think in France we have a situation quite similar to Japan, because we have approximately 3,000 companies working for the nuclear industry. So most of these companies are small and medium-sized companies, and they will invest in this new project, new building project that we will have, only if the law, if the state is very clear about what we will have to do. This is the first key of success. Thank you very much for that, because it's I see that we have quite the same situation in France and in Japan, and I think it's very interesting. The second point, very important, is that we will have to have a common investment to have all these people to train. Today, we have approximately 200,000 people working in the nuclear industry in France, and we estimate that in 2030 we will need 300,000 people with the retirement and with the new project that we will add some new needs. So we will have to find some common way of financing for example, for creating schools. This could be financed by the French government, but also the industrials could make some investment in those schools for their internal needs. For example, if they need some additional qualification for their needs compared to what the training system is offering, they will have to pay to create some new training inside their own organization. So we will define all these objectives for the end of this year, because in France the new law, the new energy law, will be issued at the end of this year, maybe the beginning of next year. It will be signed, and so we will write the next contract between the French nuclear industry and the French government in a similar time frame than the law in order to define all these questions, all this financing question, all this creation of new companies, new trainings. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And so that was the financial support as well as qualification. I think that there are different measures undertaken, including the new laws and regulations. And I would like to now ask a question to Professor Kurosaki. So if there's any suggestions you can make about Japan, please.
Thank you. Listening to the presentation from France, I learned a lot. It was very helpful, especially the University for UNN, the University for Nuclear Professionals. I was really surprised to hear that. And I think that could be a good model for Japan as we are to develop the system to educate the human resources in Japan. And nuclear HR development in Japan, as is represented by ANEC, it's really academia to academia collaboration mainly. So collaboration with industry, especially suppliers, which is the main theme of the symposium. There are really no collaboration. In fact, there are no interface. We think that that is the issue in Japan. So I would like to take this opportunity to get the feedback from suppliers. This University for Nuclear Professionals in France. How much demand is there for such university in Japan? Candid feedback would be appreciated. Thank you, Professor Kurosaki, asking for candid feedback. Mr. Masumura from TVE. Well, we are engaged in a design and manufacture of valves that are critical for safety. And we believe that the experience could be gained only through new builds and replace. And the people who have been involved in designing and the engineers with lots of experience, they are now aged over 55. So in 10 years' time, they'll all be gone. So we are working on developing the human resources. But we're hoping that universities will enhance the programs to strengthen their manufacturing capability. And I think to have the multiple companies collaborate for the training opportunities, I think would be important. It cannot be done by one single company. Thank you. So at this session, like in 2A, session 2A, we heard specific initiatives in Japan and overseas, including France, and we were able to have a very in-depth discussion. We're getting close to the end time. I'd like to invite Mr. Endo of ANRI to speak on behalf of the government regarding what expectations you have of the industry. Thank you. I think the common theme with panel 2A, my basic understanding is that since the earthquake of 2011, one thing that changed dramatically is the way the government is involved and how the manufacturers, vendors are involved as well. So I think this teaming work has really changed. It used to be the government will try to address the institutions and the utilities would generate electricity to get money to be paid to the vendors. And the government has been on the sideline in a sense. But given the current situation, utilities need to cooperate, of course, but considering the management environment, including the liberalization, as was mentioned by the regional bureau representative, I think the government has to be more involved, work side by side with the industry not just be on the sideline. The network of regional bureaus is one of the strengths that we have. So we'd like to leverage that so that we could provide more direct support. And TVE and also CSFN's Dr. Mayer talked about the need for visibility, the business viability and the visibility. And we have to have a better sense of the certainty of the business opportunities that await the companies. So as a policy, that needs to be clarified. And I think that is the responsibility of the government. Currently, the law is formulated, and a nuclear basic law would be put together that will spell out the basic policy regarding nuclear. And in it, we are clearly mentioning the maintenance and strengthening of the supply chain. So I think the visibility, the predictability of the policy is now more clear, and we hope that that will be conducive to the further development of the industry. Thank you, Mr. Endo. We're getting closer to the end time. I'd like to thank the participants for staying until the very end. I also would like to thank the panelists and the audience. And with that, we conclude this session 2B. Thank you, Ms. Kondo, and I also thank all the members of the panel. And please join me in thanking them with a big round of applause for their contribution. I also would like to thank the panelists who participated online. For closing, I'd like to invite President Arai of JAIF to give the closing remarks. Thank you very much for staying until the very end. I am Arai, President of JAIF, Japan Atomic Industry Forum. At the close of the Nuclear Power Supply Chain Symposium, I would like to say a few words as one of the co-sponsoring organizations. I'd like to thank all the representatives from domestic and overseas companies, as well as members of the embassies in Tokyo, for taking time out of your busy schedule to participate in the symposium. Thank you very much. We first heard the opening remarks from Minister Nishimura, and we had a keynote speech referring to the GX and others. That provides the clear path towards forcing or strengthening the supply chain. Now, supply chains are facing a lot of issues in Japan, and we are providing various communication to address this issue. And it is indeed significant that the government has presented the policies that contribute to the maintenance and strengthening of supply chains. So in that sense, we believe that the symposium was able to achieve the intended results. In session 1, we had General Bureau of IEA and Director General Grossi of IEA express their expectations, the great expectations that they have regarding the nuclear energy. In terms of energy security and measures to counter the climate change, the attention to nuclear is growing throughout the world, and there are new construction projects that are being considered in many different countries. I believe that Japanese companies with high technology and quality can participate in overseas projects, and contribute to the improvement of the safety of nuclear plants around the world. In session 2A, we heard various initiatives as efforts to strengthen the supply chain. And under the theme of participation in overseas projects, we do have a website that we started last year, and we do have the joint statement that was issued with our counterparts, which was introduced in the presentation of JAIF. In session 2B, we heard various case studies or cases of efforts being made under the theme of human resources development in Japan overseas to sustain the the supply chain. We need to secure the supply chain. So in JAIF, we are setting the fora for communication, bridging the students and companies so that the students can learn about the compelling nature of nuclear industry. And together with JAEA, we do have the activities to promote the Human Resources Development Network, as to promote this in an efficient, effective, and strategic manner. So through the panel discussion, we were able to have valuable input, and I'd like to thank Ms. Hiroko Kondo for serving as an excellent moderator. Maintaining and strengthening the nuclear power supply chain is an issue for Japan, and we're hoping that the symposium will serve as an opportunity to further strengthen the efforts towards that end. And we're hoping that we will see more cooperation be promoted among the like-minded countries. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone for your contribution to the success of the symposium. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This concludes the Nuclear Supply Chain Symposium. For the participants at this venue, we will send an email with the feedback sheet. We ask that you fill out that feedback sheet later. For online participants, you will actually see on your screen the survey, the feedback sheet, so please respond. And on your way out, please make sure that you leave the simultaneous interpretation receivers on your table. Again, thank you very much for participating in this symposium, and please have a safe trip back home. And for those of you online, thank you very much for your participation. Again, thank you so much.